Absolutely, and that's a great question. And like you said, brands, no matter if you're talking individually or as an organization, you have to identify what emotions resonate with your audience.
Warning: Damian Andrews' growing revenue and profit, if implemented, will put more money in your pocket. Please use with caution.
Welcome to Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit with international speaker and revenue and growth specialist, Damian Andrews. This is your source for practical, usable, and simple action steps that you can do every day to put more money in your pocket. And now, the host of Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, Damian Andrews.
And the crowd cheers wildly to the trumpeting blasts of elephants sliding through eyes of needles. This is Damian Andrews' Growing Revenue and Profit, the program that deals with all things that put more cash in your pocket. This is the show that handles your revenue riddles, profit puzzles, operational oddities, and culture conundrums. I am the one, the only Damian Andrews, and on today's show is the amazing and wonderful Jevon Wooden. Now, Jevon is a dynamic business growth strategist, speaker, author, and podcast host of the podcast Design Your Life and Business. He loves helping motivated individuals and businesses achieve their goals. And drawing on his 12 years of military experience, he honed his expertise in all aspects of leadership and peak performance under the highest possible stakes. Now, Jevon was featured in Entrepreneur, Fast Company, Foundr, Forbes, and Verizon. Welcome, Jevon. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Damian. And I'm looking forward to this, man.
Yeah, it's great, and I love the world that we live in today. I know COVID was pretty tragic, and it's a few years ago now, but it opened so many doors that we can talk. You're actually in the late evening. I'm here, and it's nearly lunchtime for me, and I'm moving into spring, and you're going into winter. It's great that we can communicate. And when we talk about business, when you look at your business and the businesses that you work with, what would you say are some key fundamentals that are overlooked by people that if they fix that, it would make the world of difference in the operation of their business?
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the communication aspect because that to me is the key that people overlook, right? Oftentimes we think about distributed systems and working wherever we want. A lot of people working from home and all that stuff. But what that has done is, yes, it's given us the opportunity, but so many of us forget about the human aspect of things, right? So what businesses tend to overlook is the human side. Learning more about the person, what motivates your employees, what are they looking for, what does your customer care about, right? So it all ties together to that communication and understanding of the human component.
I love that. And today as well, when we're talking about communication, we have to add in AI. It seems to me that people now are talking about AI as the solve all. But will AI really solve our communication issues?
No. you know, for one, AI can't feel. So it's like,
Mm.
as much as it wants to emulate our feelings and act like it can feel, it will tell you. If you do go to ChatGPT and say, "Hey, how do you feel?" It's gonna say, "Hey, I am AI. I don't feel, but I can give you my best guess." Right. And that's what is missing from that type of technology. It is great for helping us, in really increasing our productivity, maybe giving you some ideas and stuff as it stands right now. But we should not think that it is going to replace the human, right? And if you get lazy and you go ahead and let ChatGPT or Google Bard or any of those things type your website copy or type your emails and stuff like that, what you're going to do is you're going to lose your voice. right? If you just post it as it stands, you're going to lose your voice. You're going to sound like everyone else because everyone else is doing it. You're going to have a bunch of emojis sometimes and all this other stuff. So you really want to make sure that you are not just going and becoming dependent. Use it as a tool as everything else is that we have.
I was laughing when you were saying emojis because, like all of us, we use the AI tools. But yeah, the emojis, it's like, stop putting emojis in there. That's really frustrating.
Yeah. you go on LinkedIn, you see like a post with 1 million emojis, you're like, AI, that was ChatGPT for sure.
Even noticed that what you're talking about there with that feeling and being like everyone else. And we talk about the unique value proposition, because I've noticed now watching videos that I can tell, even though it sounds like a real person, I can actually tell that it's an AI because it's the same dialogue essentially. There's certain key components that you go, oh, that's a repeat, and it's not unique anymore. So how does a person go about using AI to then create a unique value proposition?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to use AI. Like, say I'm brainstorming, and maybe I'm like, okay, I need some ideas. I'm kind of hitting the wall here. I like to use it as in my ideation phase, or I may be like, you know what, rank this, right? Because it can rank your like if you write a speech or something like that. I'll say, hey, rank this. Say you're in X field. What would you rate this, and what would you add? What do you feel is missing? So I like to use it as a way to kind of parse what I've already done or to create new thoughts. And that's where the value proposition aspect of it all comes from, right? So if I want to, for instance, I'm a consultant, right? And maybe I'm saying, oh, my sales are a little slower, or my emails aren't being opened as much. I'll go ahead, type an email and say, hey, ChatGPT, what do you think about this email? What would make it better? And what it would do is say, hey, this email is okay, but what you can add is this, and this, and it'll give me an example. And I can go ahead and use my brain, my human side, and say, okay, that may resonate with my audience if I put it this way. So that's how I like to use it. It's a force multiplier, right? So we just have to remember that it's a tool. Do not become dependent on it, because what you're doing is you're actually taking away your value. Again, once you become like everyone else, your unique selling proposition, which is you, no matter, and I want to make this distinction, Damian. Oftentimes, when we're CEOs of a larger organization, we forget that you're still a representation, you're still a brand. So we have to make sure the language of that company, so from solopreneur all the way up to those Fortune 500, Fortune 100s, whatever companies, is a brand. And with that brand is a message, there's a tone, and there's a type. So you have to make sure that you're on point and on par with all of that stuff.
I love that you're talking about brand as well. I want to delve into that, but before we do, I do want to jump back to the whole communication component and the AI connection, but also much too late in life, someone said to me, people don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel. And you mentioned feeling before as well. And I spent most of my life trying to convince people with facts and figures and things like that. With maybe I'd watched too many legal shows and was trying to go, yeah, here's the fact.
They'll get you, man.
Exactly. And I would kind of do, but it didn't. Most of the time, I'd say it didn't create great relationships. But then when I was told, I can't remember who told me that, but someone said that, and I started.
Maya Angelou's quote. Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes, man. Maya Angelou.
Well, there you go.
One of my favorite.
Yeah, and from that, it completely changed the dynamic of the communication that I was having. How do you translate that into a business scenario? How do you create a situation where it's all about your communication, and you're talking about your brand, so we're linking it back to that your brand is about how you make people feel. I mean, take Coke, for example. They don't talk about drinking a Coke. Well, they mention drinking a Coke, but they say have a Coke. But they're talking about having fun. Most of their advertising is about having fun, which is a feeling.
Connection and fun, all those things.
How does a person take that in communication and create that communication that elicits feeling?
Absolutely, and that's a great question. And like you said, brands, no matter if you're talking individually or as an organization, you have to identify what emotions resonate with your audience, right? So
Mm,
we call them power words. So it could be, based on their fear, which I don't like too much. I like going for what they want, what they deem as success, what their goals are. I
mm,
feel like that's been more effective for me. So I may say, speaking about time, having more time to do what you love with who you love, right? That's tying into the emotion of freedom, that's tying into the emotion of joy, right? So you can say it explicitly or implicitly. So you always want to tie whatever you're saying into some type of emotion. Right.
mhm.
And we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where people want safety, they want to be fed, they want to be loved, they want to be respected, right? So if you look at that, then every message has to have some type of component of that. So when I'm speaking with someone, I want to develop a relationship. I don't want to look at the transactional side of things. Right? So no matter if you're service-based or product-based, it's important in business in general. Think about developing long-term relationships. That's another place people are failing in business, right? They're doing short-term transactions and not looking to establish that rapport. So what you want to do is, and I challenge the listeners to do it right now, if they can, as we're talking about it, you can check out your website. If you look at your website and it's all about you could being the company or a person, you're already wrong.
Mm. Yeah.
You're already wrong. Right? You have to start telling how you can support this person. Show that you understand them. Listen, right? You're listening, even though we're not saying anything to one another, right? You're
Mm.
listening to the person. Do surveys. Have some type of feedback loop. Let them express to you what they need, right? So if I go into a networking environment, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not going to start saying, "Hey, I'm Jevon Wooden. I do this. Oh yeah, who are you again?" I'm going to come in, and this is how we have to look at it, Damian. I'm going to come in, and I'm going to say, "Hey, okay, how's it going? What brings you here today? What made you interested in this event?" They're going to tell me, and I'm going to say, "Oh yeah, what's your name? By the way," and they're going to
Mm.
tell me, and then I'm going to tie those two together. I'm going to say, "Okay, if you had to say what success is, what would that look like for you today?" Most people don't even think about that because no one's ever asked them. So that's how you're going to build that rapport, whether it's on your website, whether you're talking to someone directly, or whether you're selling a product or service. You're always going to look at how you can help and always show that you understand what they want, where they are, and where they want to be.
I love that communication component that you're talking about there. And you mentioned asking questions, and
Mhm.
implicitly there was listening as well. How critical is that? And I know it's probably a rhetorical question, but can you expand on, why that is so important, and more so why people miss that? As you said, you go to a lot of people's website and it's all about me, 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 me. You know, I'm great and you should buy me because I'm great. As opposed
Yeah.
to, this is how I can help you. What is it that people are not getting there?
Absolutely. A lot of people, one, just like to talk about themselves, right?
Mm,
They do want to say, "Hey, I'm great. Look at me."
yeah.
But what we've realized is there is a paradigm shift because there's so much of that "I'm great. Look at me" these days,
Mm,
and people are inundated with that. So now people are saying, "You know what? I'm tired of looking at you. How about you consider me sometimes?" So
mm,
that's the paradigm shift that has taken place in the consumer mindset. So now we have to say, all right, who cares that we've been in business since 1920?
mm.
How about this is how we've helped our clients over the span of the millennia or the century or whatever, right? We've gotten them this, and this, right? Or we've seen people go from here to here, right? Now it's about showing the transformation, allowing people to put themselves in a position where they see how you're relevant to them, right? And then once they get in that position, showing them how you can get them in an even better position. So that's what we're seeing, and people are forgetting that simply because it's not a natural thing, right? Naturally, especially in the Western way of doing business, naturally, it's all about showing that you're better than your competitor.
Mhm.
So we just have to get out of that mindset and say, you know what? We got to look at ourselves as partners with who we want to connect with. We
Mhm.
got to look at ourselves as an extension, as a complement or supplement to who they are and what they are looking to accomplish.
And when we're talking about doing that, you mentioned before that you prefer to focus on your client's success. And there's another model that focuses on the FOMO of what you're going to miss out or falling
Hmm.
behind. Can you explain the difference between the two? I understand from a psychological perspective, as we evolved, we needed to be part of the group
Right,
to
right.
survive. I mean, well, we had a higher chance of survival if we were part of a group, which is why we formed tribes and that kind of thing. And if you fell out of the tribe, then you get a higher chance of being eaten by a lion, for example. And as a
Exactly.
result, what I've seen, and I've done this myself, is I would achieve a certain level of success because I was chasing that success, and then I'd self-sabotage because I didn't see myself as that. And there's a lot of talk about what's the term for it? A mental blank now. Um, Gotten the term when you're pretending to be something that you're not.
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. That's right. And so I was wondering about that from your perspective and what you have seen. How have you helped people that want to move forward using that methodology of, okay, this is what I'm moving towards, but also make that transition to actually being that person so they don't self-sabotage? One of my favorite quotes is from Cary Grant, who said, I pretended to be that person until I became him or he became me.
Hmm.
How do we make that shift so we don't self-sabotage if we've got that goal-orientated mindset?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. So there are ways to just call people out, call it like you said. If you know your audience very well and you know there are certain things they struggle with, then you can say, like, you may struggle with imposter syndrome, for instance. Well, you no more, right? Let's
Mm,
stop that right now. And getting them to feel like that boost of confidence, like, oh, okay, they know exactly what I'm feeling. So how are they going to get me from feeling that, right? You called me out, you made me recognize that I was feeling that way. Now what?
mm,
So we can do it that way. I just don't like for people to say the fear base is like, oh, you're always going to be stuck if you never take action.
mm,
Oh, if you don't sign up right now, then your life is going to be worse than what it is. Stuff like
mm,
that. I can't stand that type of marketing
mm,
because it's really, yeah, it's like, do you want a boss that does that to you? Right? If you don't do this, you're going to get fired. No, no one wants that. You don't want
mm.
fear based anything, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't last. And I'd venture to say that people who were using that type of marketing, I'm not seeing them too much anymore. I'm
Mm,
not seeing it too much anymore, right? Because people have realized, like, you know what? I fell for that a couple times, and I bought that course or I did this, and now I'm still there, right? So if you show that you actually care about the person, and you're saying, I know where you've been at, right?
mhm.
But let's take you up to the next level or five, right?
Yeah.
And here's how. Here's how I'm going to do that. This, and this, and this. I'm providing you support with a group coaching program. You get unlimited email support, whatever it is. Then fine, that's better because you're explicitly stating how you're going to support them. They can picture themselves getting that support. They
Mhm,
know that they're getting whatever from you. It's no marketing tactics that seem unscrupulous, right? And you're not playing on the fact that they're hurting.
mm,
So that's the difference, right? One is looking at, hey, okay, I know where you are. Here's how I can help. And one is, I know where you are, and I'm going to bash you so you feel even worse to buy. So I make you buy my product or work with me. Which one sounds better to you, Damian?
I know which one works for me. I And those principles apply in your life. With my son, for example, I've never yelled at him ever. And I always praise him for when he does the things that I want. And when he doesn't do something, sometimes I might have a discussion about it, but I'll never yell at him. But I make sure that I praise the behavior that I like. And now as a
Hmm.
15-year-old, he takes out the garbage and everything first time when I ask him. So, I mean, he'll probably make a good husband one day to do something first time
Yeah,
when he's
yeah.
asked.
See, absolutely. Yeah. See, so we can see that in a real case study with family, right? It's like, when you treat someone with kindness and treat someone with respect, right? They're more likely and more inclined to go the direction you were looking for them to go anywhere. But when you treat someone with that just beating them down and bashing them, they're more likely they may take that action initially, but
Mm.
eventually they're gonna be like, let me rebel a little bit because I don't like how I'm feeling right now, right? So you just have to see which way you want to go, right? Short term versus long term. Once again.
Is that the case now today because we have so much information out there that people are
Mhm.
actually much more sophisticated and they can see through those cheap sales tactics?
Absolutely, you hit it on the head. They can see through you for sure. So it's just better to be real about it. Better to be honest about it. Because and the cool thing is they can Google, right, and find out more than what you're saying. So I mean, if you say, "Hey, I've generated $1 million in sales," they could easily say, "Let me find out where." I can go on Clutch, or Better Business Bureau if you're registered with them, or some other. There's so many different ways to really find out more about your business and who you are, that it just doesn't pay to do that.
So we really need as a business to focus on creating those long-term relationships. Tell us about your interpretation of what the lifetime value of a customer means and how do we set that up so we achieve that lifetime value?
Yeah, I mean the book definition talks about lifetime value in the amount of dollars,
Mhm.
right? How many dollars that they have been worth as for the length that they've been a client or customer, right? And you want to squeeze as much as you can out of them, so you kind of look at your value ladder and say, okay, am I serving them at every level that they need to hit? Right, that's the book definition. But then there's something that's not quite measured from what I understand right now. Now there may be tools, but the social component of that client, right?
Mm.
The referrals that clients can get, the evangelism that client can get for your brand, right? The great feedback, the helping you create new products and services to serve them. So we have to that's the importance of establishing that relationship, and you have to be able to recognize those key clients, right? Those flagship clients, so to speak, so you can serve them a little bit differently than all the other clients. You should be treating them like VIPs, right? Because they're expanding that value in different ways than the book definition of lifetime value.
And where do you see in starting that relationship that where the social media ads fall into that category? Because when I look at social media, I find that it's really a space for cheap, again, those sales tacticy type emails of someone going, here I am on my yacht and I've done this and it just if you're
Oh,
a business and you're putting your promotions amongst all that, what does that do to your business and how effective is that nowadays?
yeah, I mean, ads work if you know why you're doing it and you're on the right platform. So you can't just go on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram and think that you're going to blow up, right? Because you spend some dollars, just doesn't work that way. And
Mm,
I feel bad for the people that's losing thousands of dollars doing that.
mm,
But we have to understand that. See, the process of ads, those people that you're seeing, they're doing it because they've tested it and it works. It
mm.
worked for them, right? So what we're missing as business owners who aren't well versed in that, who aren't using those scammy salesy tactics, we're missing the component of the hook. What's drawing people in, right? What's drawing them in to make them want to click that? We're not saying, oh, I just spent $1 million on this yacht and I'm chilling, even though I'm living in my mom's basement, right? We're not doing that. We're, we're more so, we're serious about the ad. We're saying exactly like what we're doing, right? Hey, how we can help clients. And people just don't want to see that really, right? Unless you're going to like a LinkedIn maybe, right? So ads, I typically with my clients, I never start with ads because first we have to prove what we're doing the ad about, right? So we got to prove that that is wanted. We got to know exactly the avatar that the ad is relevant to. And a lot of these platforms just doesn't allow us to drill down as much as we need to these days. Facebook tells you that you have to be advertised in millions, even though you may know that your audience is very, very narrow. Why do they do that? Because they want you to spend more money. And another key to this, Damian, is the Privacy Act. The fact that California Privacy Act, GDPR, all those things exist has completely scrambled the ads game, right? Facebook can't see who's clicking it, can't see all these things. So it's kind of made the cost per acquisition of a qualified lead or a lead in general, it's raised that price. So I just don't, I mean, ads, yes, they can work, but I just want people to know that there's a disclaimer. You have to spend some money to test it and get it right before you're going to see any return. So just be careful about that.
And what about organically with social media as well? Facebook, I understand your post, if you just post in 2 hours, it's effectively gone. It's not going to be seen again. And YouTube is YouTube is there. If people are subscribing to your channel, they can come back to it because you've got that there. But putting that out there and your videos appearing in search engines is not going to be there for long either. I think it's a day for YouTube, and then it's effectively gone. And the other ones, TikTok and Instagram, are even quicker than 2 hours, from what I understand. How does someone maximize their social media? Is it a case of focus, or do you have to have a broad reach? What's the best way to leverage that, given the short lifespan and the amount of effort that goes into preparing a quality post?
Absolutely. So focus. You said it. You said it, Damian. I recommend identifying one platform that where your audience is and really going hard on that platform. Like for instance, mine is LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. And some of these platforms. So for instance, with LinkedIn, they typically have a focus group, so to speak, where once you post, it tests it in that focus group first. And then it sees how it does within like an hour or so for LinkedIn, in LinkedIn's case. And then it'll start blasting it to more people if it did well within that focus group, maybe 100 folks, right? And then it'll blast it out. And what you have to do is really, you got to market it, right? You got to market that post. So you may have some groups that are relevant to your target. So join those groups, and Link allows you to share it to the group specifically. Share it to those groups. Then maybe if you wrote an article or you were on a podcast like we are today, or whatever it is, you can share through messages if it's relevant to some people in your network. You can say, hey, I was just on this podcast, or hey, I was just reading this article. I thought about you when I was doing it. So that's just a way to get more eyes on it. And then also, a lot of people don't like doing this, but you can literally, like you and I, well, if you post this, I can share it out to my network. Or if I comment on it, then whoever comments on it, their network can see what you posted. So you really want to start getting people to, and this goes for any platform, you want to start getting people to engage. And I'm not talking just liking it, because that does nothing, right? There's a ranking system on each platform. So you want to make sure like you're really getting them to comment. So maybe your call to action is asking them, what do they think about it? Or what's your thoughts? Or comment below with some of your, whatever. You always want to have a call to action on everything you do. And I also want to make this point. Do not get stuck on those vanity numbers. Do not get stuck on it. Don't worry about likes and all that stuff, especially if you're just starting out, because it will hurt your feelings, man. It hurts your feelings. So don't worry about that. Just like you said, focus. Remember why you're there. And one thing I do to kind of shift the mindset, Damian, is I don't even call it social media anymore. I call it business media because I'm about business. I'm not there to play games, not there to go mindless scrolling for an hour. I'm there with a purpose, right? And that purpose could be outreach to connect with some new prospects or partners. It could be to make a post to get more brand awareness and engagement. Whatever it is, I got to be intentional about it. And that's what the audience should really be doing.
Yeah, I love that focus component. I have a friend of mine
Mhm.
here in Australia who has a very successful business. He has a tile business and he's kind of become an icon. And for well, while he was running the business, his son's taken over now. But while he was running the business, he only did radio ads. And he had a tagline that created him as an icon. And even DJs at raves have then mimicked him in the raves, which and not just in Australia,
That's
globally,
awesome.
and it's gone viral. But his thing
I
was,
need to try that.
yeah. Well, when I was talking with him, he goes, if I had more money for advertising, I would put it again into radio, not anything else. And that focus really worked for him. It took a little bit to get started, but once it got started, it then snowballed. How do you
That's a
go
good
about?
point, though.
Go ahead.
I'm
Yep.
sorry. I was gonna say that's a good point about it taking your time. We have to level set, and we have
Mm.
to stop expecting. So I'm glad you made that point, Damien.
No, well, can you expand on that? Because I think one of those things that we
Absolutely.
do have is we have this optimism bias. I had a call from one of my clients, and he called saying that one of his friends was doing a business, and he put something out there, and just he's gone big, really, really big, really quickly, putting it out there, and that expecting all this revenue to come in. And he's got 20 people, and he spent like tens of thousands of dollars, and
Wow.
in some marketing, and it just got very little response. How much of that optimism bias plays in, and how do we keep that in check? That understanding that people operate from habit, and for people, it's not like there are thousands of new people. So when you put an ad out there, there's thousands of people that aren't doing anything and going, oh, I'm waiting for your ad. Oh, now I need something to do. They're already doing
Yeah.
stuff. They've already got life. They've already got their habits that they're following. And for you to break that habit takes time. How do we keep ourselves in check and that optimism bias in check so we don't go and do stupid stuff like tens of thousands of dollars to get 20 people
Oh
for a
man, that's
small,
that's terrible.
low price item?
Uh, gosh. Well, first we have to understand that marketing is actually testing. Marketing equates to testing. So if you haven't proven that something is working, why are you just throwing everything at it? So you want to make sure that you're again focusing. Maybe one thing. If you're a one man team, you definitely only need to be focusing on one thing, trying it out, tracking it. Data numbers are going to tell you. That's what you should be paying attention to, because if you're not measuring it, you're doing yourself a huge disservice because you're not able to see what's working and what's not working. So track it daily. When I first run anything, I'm tracking it daily, and I'm gonna set a time frame. I'm gonna say, okay, maybe I do this for 2 months, maybe I do it for a month, whatever, and I'm going to see the trends.
Mm.
That's going to keep me measured, and I'm not going to throw everything out when I first start. For an addict, for example, I'm not going to throw $100 a day. No matter, contrary to what Facebook tells you, I'm not doing that. I'm going to test it, because just like Facebook ads has a learning phase, so do I. So I
Mm.
need to make sure and tweak. I want to do something called A/B testing. So with A/B testing, I'm going to use a ad, for example, just because we were talking about it. I may change the headline of that ad, right? One group may get, a headline that says, "Hey, I'm awesome." The other one may say, "Hey, you're great." And I'm going to see which one does best. And
Mm.
in that time frame, I'm going to pick a winner once I see the numbers, right? So you want to just tweak just little things as you go, get better a little bit as you go until you get as close to where your numbers are as you need them to be. And you want to set metrics. You don't want to just do it blind. Say, for instance, my cost per acquisition. If I say once it hits to $1.25, then I know I'm okay, right? And I've gotten X leads, then that's when I'll say, okay, my case study is good. I've done my due diligence. Right now, I can start maybe spending a little bit more, right? And so you want to just iterate the process. I definitely don't recommend just throwing everything you have at this stuff because it's not proven. It's not proven. Even if, and this is a good point too, Damian, like even if I've been in business for 20 years and I've been selling the same product for 20 years, that product tomorrow may no longer be what the market has an appetite for. So we got to keep that in mind, right? Have foresight. See where the market is going. Don't just do it in a silo. You can use something like Google Alerts. You can use like Talkwalker. You can use, there's any number of tools. Those are free. That's why I named them. Google Analytics, all those things to see what's happening in your space, in your industry. See what's happening with your company. Are you being mentioned, right? Are people aware of you? See what's happening with your competition. And that will tell you, is what you're doing, those marketing efforts, their PR efforts, are they working? So just track everything.
That's fantastic advice. I kind of I was a little bit lost listening to that because it was just so much good. And it was reminding me again, coming back to that same person I mentioned before with the tile business, that he actually had, I think at the time he had 30 years of success. Very, very successful business. Oh, there was some ups and downs in there. At one point, he nearly went broke and rescued it. But then similar sort of thing. You had an idea to expand on that. A separate business that was an offshoot, put that out there, wasn't properly tested, and there was no market for it. And he spent a couple of $1 million that didn't result in anything. It's he's a couple of, it's all relative. But
yes,
that testing component as well, I mean, it happens all the time. And one of my favorite examples of that was the show The Practice. If you watch the last few episodes of The Practice, you see that they introduced all the characters for Boston Legal and got some feedback on whether that was there. And then they went and launched Boston Legal, which became a very successful show. So that testing is really, really important. When we're taking that a step further, and we're talking about lifetime value of the customer, but taking that, finding the customers, how do we go about, what are ways that we can actually find where our customers might be at?
Yeah, there are a few ways, right? So for instance, you mentioned social media. If you're like just starting out, bare bones, think about it for a minute. Right. Think about what that customer looks like. Make an avatar. I mentioned avatar before. Make an avatar. Just one. Just start off with one. How old are they? Where do they shop? What type of clothes do they wear? What revenue are they bringing in? Or what job are they working? Do they have a family? What time do they wake up? Do they work out? You want to write as many psychographic, demographic items as you can for this person. Once you do that, one of those questions should be, what magazines do they read? Another one should be, what social media platforms do they use? You want to get as detailed as possible. And then what you can do once you have that information, test it out. Again, here goes the test. If you have a good following pick a platform, do a survey. Every platform has the ability to do surveys. Ask them what are some issues they're struggling with. Ask them, would they prefer A, B, C, or D? Maybe you want to run a workshop, things like that. Also, you want to, once you do figure that out, ask some people, let people know what you're doing. I am not opposed to promoting my business and what I do. Right? Let people know. If you just started it, for instance, we're going to stay with the new business, case study. So if I just started a business, I'm gonna text everybody in my phone. I'm gonna say, hey, just letting you know, I started this business. If you know anyone who is looking for this, and this, send them my way. Whatever. No harm, no foul. Right? I'm gonna do it. You should not be ashamed of promoting yourself, promoting your business. Now, every day, don't do that, but just let people know passively. And a way to reestablish connections, if you know there's someone in your network that could help you, find these clients. A way I like to reestablish is I would say, like I mentioned earlier, find an article, find something that's relevant to them, check their LinkedIn, see what they had going on, or their Facebook, whatever your platform is, pinpoint something. If they had a congratulatory moment, send them a message, a DM, and say, hey, congratulations, I noticed you did X. Or if you know they like a certain topic, send them an article and say, hey, I came across this article and I thought of you, right? How are things going? And then they're going to get in this contract. They're going to ask you, how you doing? And you're going to say, I'm doing fine. How are you? Whatever. Small talk, get it out the way. And then say, well, what? Another thing that's been going on with me is I started this business. Do you know anyone who could benefit from this, who's looking for this, this, and this? I like to give 3, right? 3 options is always a good thing. I always have 2 that are very specific and then 1 kind of catch-all who's still like my ideal client, but maybe I didn't state it right. So that's just my trick when I'm talking to somebody. So those are certain ways. Like I love using my network first. Start with the network first, and then use the free platforms you have. Go to networking events. If you're an introvert, because I want to talk to introverts first. Networking, don't look at it as a bad thing, right? Networking your own way. Some people, they don't feel comfortable going to events. If you're an extrovert and you feel confident in that, fine. But if you're an introvert, there are still ways to network. I mentioned using your network physically, right? Literally, but also just get very intentional about it, right? Maybe you only call one person, right? That's a way to network. One-on-one may be your way. Just operate in your own zone. Introverts tend to not want to mingle with a big group, so you don't have to. You don't have to. Find a focus group. Find anything. Just you want to get in the spaces where you know your clients are. But to do that, you have to identify what that client looks like with that avatar. And that's going to set you on a path. And then once I do that, I always do a Google, like, hey, events where, consultants will be, events where, business owners attend, conferences, whatever. Just do a Google search and you can find it. And that's where AI comes in too. You can search, like, what are typically events that X would be at? And now AI is going to give you a list. So just start there. Make it easy on yourself.
How do we go about this identification of the client? Sorry, let me phrase the question. You're talking about identifying, we've got here, what your customer looks like in creating that avatar. Can you expand on why that is really important? Because a lot of times when people are starting business, and I've done this myself when I was younger as well, going, it's for everybody. But when we look at how our brain operates, our reticular activating system filters. And we've all had that experience where we couldn't find something in the house and we've looked in ridiculous places like the freezer. And then when we're relaxed, we see it there sitting on the bench and it was always there. But because of the way we set our mind up, without realizing it, we actually block that. And I do this all the time. I build Lego, and I've made a practice of training my mind when I look at the piece that I clearly see that in my mind, and immediately in my big pile of things, my brain goes right to where that is. So I've been training my mind in that way to focus on that. So can you expand on that need to identify what is your specific customer because of how people view things? If you're a general, if you've got a general view of, this is what I've got to offer and it's for everybody, then by that psychological basis, people are not really going to pay attention to it. Whereas if you're specific, people will pay attention to it. But how does someone overcome that fear of, I need to get business in straight away? It's a kind of can you expand on that and how we balance that?
Yes, absolutely. So you said it greatly. You talked about the reticular activated system and how you end up pinpointing. For instance, if you said, hey, I want a blue car, and you mentioned a blue car, you start seeing a bunch of blue cars. But if you say, hey, I want a blue 2018 Chevy Corvette Cobalt Blue, now you're going to start seeing that car. You're going to start paying attention to the sea of cars, right? So that's what you want to do, and that's why it's important, because it gives you that focus. So when I do go to that networking event, I know exactly what I need to be listening to, and I'm going to have this avatar in my mind. And I'm going to say, oh, when I'm asking questions, I know exactly what questions I should ask, and I can prepare for this before I go to this event. I'm going to ask them, what brought them to it. One, that gives me some keys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask them, what are they looking to get? What would success look like? Sorry, my dog likes what I'm talking about. So what success would look like? Yeah, right. I'm gonna have certain keys, right? So whatever the case may be. And then when you're talking to them, you know what to say to them as well, because you know who they are. You know what you're looking for. And if they fit that avatar, when you say something, they might say a key like, oh, I could use that. Or, oh man, that sounds like something that, I was looking for. Or when I get to a certain point. So now you know what you're listening for to say, ding, 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 ding. That's it. That's the person I'm looking for. And it also guides you, right? It's important because it guides you. We talked about platforms. So you're not wasting a bunch of time trying to be omnipresent when you don't need to be. You just need to be present on this one thing, one platform. Or maybe you need to join this one group where there's a sea of your people there. So it just guides your focus. There goes that word again. Guides your focus in everything you do. Your messaging, we mentioned branding, your messaging needs to align with that target. Right. And as you grow your business, maybe you have multiples, but then that's where you start to see. So for instance, if you go on a consulting site, and I keep using that because I'm a consultant. If you go on a consulting site, I may have my industries. But I'm not going to say the same language for every industry. I'm going to have different pages because I want to speak to them differently. And it's the same premise when you talked about your avatar and finding your clients. You want to speak to them a specific way. Don't want to say, oh, I help everyone, because they're going to be like, you're going to help no one. Because they don't feel, it's not personalized. How can they get an emotional connection to what you're talking about if you're not talking to them? If you don't show interest in them, they're not going to show interest in you. So you want to make sure that you're making it feel personal, like you just knew them all this time. You're their savior, you're their best friend, whatever you want to feel like. You want to make them feel connected, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And you talk about in your podcast is design your life and business. So you're talking about balance there. When on one of my programs, I had three plumbers, three guys that had a plumbing business, and it was a large business. They were turning over 15 mil. And they were telling me their story of when they were turning over 15 mil, they were flat out working 7 days a week, didn't have time for their family. When we're talking about identifying the ideal client, can you expand on the component that relates to that story? Is that they decided that was enough. They wanted more time for their life. So they decided to get rid of a lot of their clients. And they went through and who they considered were not the great clients, the clients that were not so, troublemakers, so to speak. I like to think that, and I hope, my recommendation is your troublemaker clients, you refer to your competition. But what they did was they actually found, as a result of that culling of clients, which it was, because their revenue dropped a third. So they went from 15 million to 10 million. That's a massive drop. What happened though was they got their life back. So they worked 5 days a week, normal hours. The bigger impact was their profit went up. So they went from $15 million to $10 million, but the money they took home was much more.
Yes.
Can you expand on that and explain the rationale behind identifying, be very, very clear about the client that you want and how you can set up an ideal client that is actually going to be more profitable for you?
Yes, I mean, that is a great way to preface this. So For instance, when these three plumbers, they were working with these problem clients, they were one spending a lot of man hours, which you don't want to do because that's not even in the bottom line, right? How many hours they spent. But two, you find that when you're working with the wrong client, they demand more of you, which equates to more overhead to serve them, right? That could be systems, it could be more people, whatever the case may be. You're ending up spending more physical money on serving that client because they're demanding more from you than your ideal client because they don't fit. Right? They don't fit, and you're trying to make them fit. There goes a square peg in a round hole, right? So, but when you have that ideal client, it's ease. So, like you said, they were able to spend more time with their family because the systems they built, the business they built, were designed to focus and provide the solutions for those clients they kept. So it makes it easier. I'm able to process the systems flow a lot better. I'm not having to spend money on overtime and wasted man hours or resources because I'm serving my ideal client and I built everything to do that, right? I'm not having to add services that I didn't anticipate adding, which I'm not having the infrastructure to support because I have my ideal client and I've already thought about the value ladder to make and expand that lifetime value of that particular client. Right? There's so much there that really speaks to the importance of identifying who you want to serve and why. The why. We haven't even talked about why you want to serve them. So you also want to ask why that client. The so what factor. So what? Oh, I want to serve tech companies. Why? Why does it matter? Why tech companies specifically? What about them draws you to them? What about them would make you feel energized even on the days you have no energy, right? What about them would allow you to keep it a level of excellence for years to come and be creative and innovative in the way that you're providing value to them? So those are really, really why it's super important to find that client because you're going to burn out faster than you can say, help me. if you get those wrong clients, man, you're right. You're doing this, you're drowning, and they're going to provide bad reviews. They're going to always say that you're not doing something correct, right? They're going to be demanding refunds and chargebacks and all this other stuff because they don't fit, right? So we have to be really, really mindful of all of that.
And when we're looking at business, if we're focusing on the right client, I like to think that life is pretty simple. There's key principles, and if we follow those key principles, then and obviously there is an adaptation. It's not a one size fits all. You have to have the ability to know how to take those principles, which is pretty straightforward, and then implement them. An example is if you want to be wealthy, you keep some of what you earn, you invest it and reinvest the income. It's not a question. It will happen. You will be wealthy. So that it's a principle if you follow that. Now, obviously, there's some education that goes around choosing the right investments, that kind of thing, and having certain education to be able to provide value to earn income in the first place. When we're talking about having that ideal client, before we get into referrals, it's actually finding that client. Now, today, the world is really, really busy. And I think the touch points are somewhere around 15 to 18 times before you even get in the door now.
Absolutely.
When I started, I think it was 4.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It has shot up tremendously.
How much of that, and I like to think about, you're in the military, same as myself, and when I was in the Army, there was a guy, Shane. He was a reasonably good-looking guy, but he wasn't that bright. And I think because he wasn't that bright, he kept getting promoted because he was always in front of CEOs for some reason. But he wasn't that bright, but he was always dating these really amazing women. They were beautiful, they were intelligent, they were kind, lawyers, doctors, those kind of things, really kind. And myself and my friends go, how? You're not that bright. And we're obviously thinking he's well hung. And but one day I asked him, and I literally said this. I said, Shane, you're not that bright. How is it you're dating all these great women. And I think it's a testament to how he approached things was he didn't even flinch at the not your that bright comment. He just put his arm around my shoulder and said, Damian, what you don't see is I ask a lot. Most say no. You just see the ones that say yes. How can you expand on how important it is to actually be consistently out there, consistently asking, and how someone goes about that in a way that's not pushy but is showing value?
Absolutely. And I don't know if you know his name is Myron Golden, right?
Mhm.
And he's one of the greats when it comes to sales. And he always talks about this concept of making more offers, right?
Mm.
Because no matter how amazing you are at business and closing deals and all this other stuff, you mentioned it. It takes 15, 18 touches, 20 touches, takes a lot of times.
Mm.
Uh, and it's a numbers game. However you want to say it. When you think about this, think about the greatest batters, right, in baseball or any sport. Their numbers, if you look at it, they're batting like maybe 30%, 28%, right? Whatever the case may be, they're in the Hall of Fame. So think
Mm.
about that for your business, right? If you need to bat 25%, 30% to hit your revenue goals, and you're only making, 5 offers, you're not giving your chance to survive, right?
Yeah.
And there goes the point of promoting yourself. You have to be willing to do that. And you're
Mm.
not doing it, like you said, you're not doing it in a pushy way, like, hey, buy my stuff and just throwing them a bunch of stuff they didn't ask for. But if you're saying, hey, how's it going? I'd love to have a conversation with you and find out more about how I can help you with your goals, right? Not my goals, but how I can help you with your goals. And that's your ideal client, right? They may say, hey, cool, yeah, I have some time next week, or they may say, not now, I'm not interested. But that opens the door. Now they're aware, right? Because we're talking about the customer journey. They're aware of you. And if you're on LinkedIn or something like that, maybe you connected with them, follow them, and you can see their posts. So now you can comment and say, oh, I love that, provide some insight. Here's how we helped our clients, whatever you want to do, right? And now they're aware of you. They're seeing you. So subconsciously, you're just planting those flags in their mind.
Mm.
And now you can come back again. When maybe they say, hey, we're looking for exposition, or my company is expanding, or, does anyone know where I can find the best widget? And now you can say,
Mm.
yes, I got you, right? And you may not be, even this one, you may not be in that place, but if you like, yeah, I know someone who can, maybe you provide a referral to your friend or your partner, or maybe you just say, hey, here's a link, right? Whatever. But now they're saying, okay, this person is helping me. This person has been there like for a while and I'm starting to remember them, right? So that's a way you can do it. Now they follow you, they connect with you, you're making posts, you're adding value. And I want to make that point too. Adding value is not giving, if you're an expert in something and you really know it, you should be able to write or speak about it like it's nobody's business.
Mm.
And it's not. People struggle with social media or business media because they're frightened about how much content they need to make. And I'm going to give y'all a little game on how I show value to my clients and my prospects, and how I'm pitching to them at the same time, right? So what I would do is I plan out my content. So I may say, this week I give myself themes typically, unless something happens, right? So this week I want to talk about outbound marketing, for instance. Then I'm going to say five ways you can do outbound marketing without ads, right? That's 5 ways. That's 5 days. As I break it down, right? So 5 ways. I'm going to give those at a high level.
Mhm.
And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of those 5, and then the next day I'm gonna break out that one. Hey, here's 5 ways you can use blogging, right? As a marketing technique. Bang. And now I'm gonna keep doing that, and I'm gonna go back to that other 5. Here's 5 ways I can use videos, right?
Mm.
And that's how you make content. You just give yourself buckets. Don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be super long, 400 words
Mhm.
or 400, 800 words. That's fine. And what I can do now is that same person that I was pinging, if I know that they're interested in a certain topic, I can say, hey, I just wrote this article. I would love to get your thoughts on it.
Mm.
Now they know I'm the real deal. I've helped them. I've touched their points. I've commented on their stuff, right? And I'm not stalking them, right? It's just the natural flow of social media, right? So that's one way. Another way that you can do these touch points and really add value without being salesy is just be you. Just, if you're interested in the
There's a
subject,
unique concept. Be yourself.
yeah, just be yourself. That I always tell my clients, like your greatest unique selling proposition is you're unique, right?
Mm,
So you want to make sure that you're not sounding like everyone else. You're putting your spin on it. So I could take a concept. Maybe I read an article and say, I might take the contrarian view, or I may say add something to it. And when you do that, it really shows your depth, but it
mhm,
also shows that you contribute in a way that maybe someone else that they know couldn't do it.
mm.
And again, with your network, you want to make sure that they're aware that you're doing these things. So maybe you make a deal like, hey, Damian, I just posted this article. You care to share it, or you care to comment, whatever. Don't in this game, don't feel bad about asking someone to help you out a little bit, right? Because we're gonna need help. It's so much noise out there, so you have to promote. You got to make the offers, and track it once again. Like if I know, like I said, I know I need to make 100 offers to get one sale, then you better be out there making 100 offers, right? And there's software to help you find leads, and you can find the best way to do that, whether it's an email, whether it's a cold call, there's video services now that you can use, direct mail. There's so many different ways you can do it. Test them, and find what works best for you, and just repeat the process. And then add another one after you've mastered that one, then repeat that process, right? And just keep those wheels turning.
Can you expand on that to qualifying customers? So coming back to what you mentioned about having your ideal client, creating that avatar, and then qualifying.
Mm-hmm.
And then some examples are, I help out some people, some smaller business, just and I volunteer my time to do that. One of my guys that I've helped out, he has a small little business and he goes around to community markets. And I said, and he was
Mm-hmm.
handing out business cards left, right, and center, and having small bit of success. And I said, get rid of the business cards. If someone's interested, I said, you ask them for their details and say to them, hey, every now and then, because he's offering this unique product that was custom made, I said, Father's Day, Mother's Day, we have some specials coming up, and would you mind giving me your details? And I won't spam you. It'll just be a couple of emails every couple of times a year with some specials that we got coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind
Mm-hmm.
giving me your details? And if that's helpful to you, I can flick you that detail. He doubled his business from just doing that because he was qualifying and not dealing with people that weren't helping him. And another example is even on my own website. I have them. I'm a premium product, so I help people voluntarily, smaller businesses. But for my clients, I consider myself a Rolls Royce, so I put that price right up front. That qualifies, and there's a lot of people that don't contact me because of that. What are some ways people can qualify the customer so that they get focused on what is their ideal customer?
Yeah, you mentioned a couple, right? So it really depends on that client, if you know them. So it could be that you do a form, right? Have them fill out a form before if you do sales calls or discovery calls, right? Have them fill out a form so they hit the revenue goals, or they fit that profile. Just another confirmation. That's one. It could be that you mentioned the email list and stuff like that. Maybe when they come on the email list, you ask them a couple questions, just to see what they like, or maybe you have a lead magnet that they were interested in, right? And you're getting information from that. So there's so many different ways to qualify people, right? Before you invest additional time, right? It really depends on your business model. So it has to fit your business model. So for instance, a product, right? You may qualify right from the jump and say, hey, this is for people who do this, 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 and this. If you're not that person, right, then this ain't for you. And you can explicitly state it that way on your website, like you said, or price points, right? So there's 1,000 ways to do it. messaging is a really strong one. So I can explicitly say, hey, I'm looking for the people who have these traits. And if you are this type of person, I don't want you. I can repel that way, attract, repel. That's an old school way, right? On sales pages, we see that all the time. On the price points, like putting that up front, bottom line up front, as we say in the military, right? Putting that there. A survey before, just to refocus and remake sure that they know what they're getting themselves into, is another way. And you can say, like, just so they know that you may, if you don't want to put the price up front, you can say, hey, this requires an investment. Right? Are you ready to make an investment of, if it's more than $3,000, for example? Are you ready to make an investment of over $3,000 in yourself? Whatever. Right? There's so many different ways to do it that it really just depends on you.
Yeah. And from that, once you've qualified a customer and you've got a customer, you mentioned before about referrals. Can you expand on how important referrals are and how to go about obtaining referrals?
Absolutely. Referrals are a zero cost marketing strategy. Right? It costed me no dollars to get this person. So it's all margin, right? It's a great way to do it. One, again, you got to ask for them. You got to ask for them. There are software now that allows you to actually create a referral system. So you can have people sign up for that. I like, you can gamify it to do a leaderboard if you want. You can throw events to make people feel special about being your top referral source. So that's one way. And then two is it could be your clients or customers that's giving you referrals. Make sure you're asking them too. Hey, if you found my services helpful or my product helpful, hey, tell your friends. Right? Or social media. We mentioned social media. Have them run a giveaway contest and tag 3 people, or enter to win by providing this information. There's so many different ways to get referrals that, I mean, it's really limited to only your creativity and imagination. And these referrals are important because, one, it shows, it's testing that my product and my service is worth it. People really like what I'm doing, right? Two, like I said, it's zero cost marketing or very little cost marketing if you put anything into it, right? And then three, you can do it in perpetuity if you do it right. Right. So if this person refers me to this person, and I'm always asking, hey, do you know 3 people who may benefit from my product or service? Right. I'm always asking this. And the more and more they do that, the faster that I'm building up my machine. And as long as you ask, you may not get it every time, but as long as you ask, someone's going to be willing to do it. The principle of reciprocity. If I help them, they're going to be more willing to help me, right? So we just got to remember that. Always ask.
Awesome. I love it. And yeah, asking is so critical to anything. If you don't ask, you don't get. Tell us.
Yeah. Closed mouths don't get fed.
Exactly. Can you tell us about your podcast, Design Your Life and Business, and also let's talk about and expand that into the services that you offer and how people can reach you. We'll put all that in the show notes, but can you just talk to that as well, and anything that might be relevant that you want the audience to hear about your products and services?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for giving me space to do so, Damian. So Design Your Life and Business, the podcast for leaders, is really, as it sounds, it's about giving you personal development and business growth strategies from today's top leaders. And a lot of them I wanted to bring them and give them a platform because they are just as great as your favorite guru, but they just don't have the platform yet. So speaking of referring, right? So I wanted to give people a space similar to yours to talk about how we can be better, especially in today's crazy business business world. So how can we be better personally and not burn ourselves out and die early, right? And then how can we better from a business standpoint? So whether that's leadership, communication, team development, name it. We have someone for everything. SEO, So we just cover all of these topics to make you better in a holistic standpoint. If you're familiar with consulting, we just had Mr. Alan Weiss, the $1 million consultant himself, on it, and he gave some great tips on expanding any business. So you guys can check that one out. And then as far as my services, so I focus on development and leadership and executives through my coaching. I also offer strategy consulting and cybersecurity consulting. And that stems from my background. People are like, how do you, what? Yeah, it stems from my background because I have an MBA and a master's in cybersecurity. So why not do them all, right? And I'm also a keynote speaker, and I focus on speaking on leadership and business growth strategies, as we talked about today. And yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But I am happy to speak to anyone. I would love to, just serve any way that I can. Because I know your audience is just like you, excellent in what they do, and just looking to hit that next level.
Fantastic. And what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Jevon Wooden, Jevon Wooden, and go ahead and connect with me. Shoot me a DM, and I'd love to have a conversation.
Love that. And we'll put those details in the show notes for the audience as well. And you're also an author as well. Tell us about, the writing that you've done.
Yes. Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up because I forgot all about it. So the book is
I'll
called
promote you. I'll be your PR agent.
Yeah, right. The book is called Own Your Kingdom: How to Control Your Mindset So You Control Your Destiny. And I wrote this one because mindset for me is key. If we are to be our best selves, we have to be in the right mindset. And there are things we need to do to get there. So this book is not just a book that you read, but it's an implementation guide. When you do purchase it, it comes with a free workbook to work you through some of the exercises I actually use myself as I overcame adversity in my own life and business.
I love that. And maybe one of the other podcasts that I do is the Share.care podcast, and we do some book reviews on there. So maybe I'm asking you publicly, would you come along and do a review on that podcast?
Oh, absolutely. That would be amazing. I would love to.
Awesome.
And if you send me your address, I can send you a signed copy as well.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Well, we'll tee that up outside of the show, and we'll bring that to the audience. So just a teaser for the audience, there's a book review coming on Jevon's book, and we'll have that on the Share.care podcast, which is the sister show to this.
I love it.
Before we go, it's been wonderful chatting with you, and we've talked for a while, and there's been so much great content. So I'd encourage the audience to go back and review the podcast and listen to the detail there, because there is delve deep into that, because there's so much wisdom that Jevon's shared, practical wisdom that you can actually take away and use. But can you leave the audience with what would be your key takeaway? What would you want them in a nutshell to draw from your knowledge, your experience, that can help their business grow their revenue and profit?
Absolutely. We mentioned that word a few times, which is focus. Everything we do has to be intentional. And sure, you're going to make some mistakes along the way, and it's cool to have that R&D, research and development going on, but it needs to align with the core, right? The core of who you are, the core of what you want the business to be known for, and the core of what the goals are. So make sure you're focused in that. Make sure you're measuring to ensure that it is aligning with those cores, and then come back and reiterate. Always test it out. Don't ever just get content and comfortable. Refocus, realign, and you will definitely ascend.
Awesome advice. Focus is so critical. I love that. Jevon, it's been so wonderful having you on the show. I've really, really appreciated the knowledge that you've shared and taking the time to share with the audience. I know you're very busy and have lots of work to do, so thank you very much for taking the time. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon on the Share.care podcast. And also, we've made a connection, and no doubt we'll continue our connection into the future. But thank you very much for being on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Damian. It's been an honor.